Uh, Last year, when we met you at Ignite, what we did was we talked about a recommitment to being your platform of choice for building out virtual workspaces. We made that commitment, and what you see up on the slide is the things that we wanted to deliver against. Last year, we also showed you the innovations along with Windows Server 2016 that were kind of our first steps towards realizing that commitment. We talked about increased performance on the graphics side that allows you to virtualize an ever-widening array of applications. We talked about enhancing scale up, scale down on the connection side. And we also talked about the first level of enablement that you need to put your deployments in the cloud. And this is all platform. This is all what we consider platform capabilities. We also recommitted to our partners, chiefly among them Citrix, who's joining us today. And we launched a couple of Azure-only Citrix services, Zen Desktop Essentials and Zen App Essentials. Today, I want to talk to you about the things that we have been doing since then. I want to talk to you about our vision for upcoming innovations. Again, on that same theme of putting more and more into the platform so that we can accelerate innovation not just for ourselves, but also for our partners. The first pillar or the first set of investments that we're going to show you today is around security. Now, security doesn't get talked about all that much when we talk about virtualization. It is usually about the app delivery choices, the cost effectiveness, but we know from our conversations with our customers that the inherent security of having an application not execute on the client machine is what drives the first discussions of virtualization in many cases for many organizations. Now, we're taking it a step further and joining the security capabilities inherent in RDS with the many security capabilities we are investing in as Microsoft. Things like secure authentication, things like signals from the intelligent security graph. And also, we're making a bunch of investments in security even within our infrastructure roles within RDS. So you're going to see all that coming up. The second, we started down the journey of giving you a clear path to take your RDS deployments into the cloud. Today, we are going to talk to you about that second level of cloud enablement, which we define as really getting to the core benefits that the cloud provides you, that Azure provides you. Things like scalability, elasticity, all that good stuff. Third, the actual presentation. Right? The user experience, app delivery choices, we've got a lot of innovations there too. And through this journey, while we talk about all these three things, we will be showcasing some key partner innovations that are taking place. And as I said, we have Sridhar, VP of Product Management, joining us from Citrix to talk about it firsthand too. So without taking up any more of your time, I'll give it over to Scott Manchester, who heads our engineering team.
Thanks, Joydeep. So really excited to be here today. It was a year ago that we were on stage here and we had an opportunity to share with you the innovations we did in 2016. Joydeep did a good job highlighting those things. But our team hasn't been idle. We've been really busy since then and had some great opportunities to do some amazing innovation that we're really excited to share with you guys today here for the first time. How many of you guys have seen the YouTube video, the Mechanics YouTube video on RDMI? I'm glad to see a few hands here instead of a lot of hands because that means I get to share it with you guys for the first time here. But do take a look at that if you get a chance. We did a live recording of this and posted about a week ago on YouTube as a mechanics session. So subscribe to the Microsoft Mechanics feed on YouTube. Some really great content there. So with that, I'd like to reiterate some of the things I want to share with you today. More Secure was certainly one of the core pillars for the investments that we made in our next generation of remote desktop services. You're going to hear us use this terminology a little bit throughout the rest of the week. we talk about our new remote desktop services as remote desktop modern infrastructure. And you'll understand why we call it that as we get a little further into the content here, and we show you how you can deploy these things into Azure and all the benefits that you get from this next generation remote desktop services. So two major factors when we talk about security. First is the authentication. Now we are able to leverage Azure Active Directory authentication to get access to the deployment. And there's a lot of talks here talking about all the great innovation happening in AAD. We just ride that wave. We can support multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and we can take input signals from the intelligent security graph and apply dynamic conditional access policies. Amazing innovation that we now can leverage as part of your RDS deployment. But we didn't stop there. We also wanted to make sure that the infrastructure is secured through AAD, but then your application and desktop hosts, your session host servers and your VDI instances also are protected. So we no longer require you to open inbound ports to your environment. So any of you that dealt with the WannaCry virus, right, or some of these other kind of security threats, opening inbound ports is a big no-no, right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to expose any of our network to the public-facing internet. So we've made some changes. We'll get a little bit into the details of how this works as we get farther along into the presentation. So I actually have a demo. I'm going to show you guys a little bit what this looks like. And hopefully our Wi-Fi will hold up enough here to make this work for me. So a couple of things I want to talk about, kind of frame this demo. So we've been working to enable AAD into all of our remote desktop clients. So our iOS, our Mac, Android, our new HTML5 client, we'll talk a little bit about that today. And then we even have a down-level client that'll work on Windows 7 as well. So we're bringing the Azure Active Directory authentication libraries into our clients so that we get that AAD auth as part of the user experience before they get access to the resources. So what I have here is an enlightened app that has this new Azure Active Directory authentication libraries. I'm about ready to subscribe to a feed, and I want to kind of take you through the user experience here. So I've provided the feed. I'm going to hit next. And say, yes, I want to subscribe to this feed. Now, if all works as planned, I should get the ADAL libraries here. So let me provide my, oops. Come on. Montoy, thank you. Save me a bad password example. All right, so I've set this user up here to not only have access through AAD, but also to use two-factor auth. That's my phone ringing.
You're using a Microsoft sign-in verification system. Please press the pound key to finish your verification. Your sign-in was successfully verified. Goodbye.
Now I've allowed the user to select what multi-factor auth to use, and I chose, as the user connecting to this subscription, I chose to use the phone factor here. I changed resolution since I launched this, so that's why this is not scaling well. But here you can see all of my resources are available to me now, and I could connect up to these resources. So it was just that easy to set up this user to require multi-factor authentication. Just selected the defaults. They can use whatever two-factor auth mechanism they wanted. But before I can even see the deployment, I had to provide that level of authentication. So this works really smoothly now. And as I mentioned, when we go live with this stuff later next year, we'll have this built into all of our client applications. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about what the environment looks like. So this is your traditional RDS deployment. We've got a network set up here. We've got all our infrastructure roles, our gateway, our web access brokers and such. And inside of that same network, we have our VDI instances behind our RDVH role, and we have our session host servers. I'm calling this, you're going to hear me use the term remote app and desktop host. That is my term for the combination of VDI and session host instances, because going forward, we view those in the same way, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So in this configuration, my gateway and my web access, they're both domain joined and public facing, right? They're open to the public internet, right? So that makes them vulnerable to security attacks. So looking at this infrastructure is what we where we started and said, where are the security threats? Where are the areas that we have opportunities to make this more streamlined? And not only just for a single tenant deployment, but also to support multi-tenant deployments. So this is how it looks now. So with remote desktop modern infrastructure, again, emphasizing modern, I've got all my infrastructure roles. I've got my gateway and my web access like we've had in the past. I've got my broker. I've got my licensing server. But the RDVH role goes away. We now bring that capability to manage VDI instances natively into our broker, right? So now our connection broker can talk through Hyper-V, can talk through Azure ARM APIs, and manage the VDI instances. So obviously much simpler provisioning for you. Also, this enables us to take VDI management to the cloud now. The other thing you'll notice is we have a new role, a new diagnostic role. This is going to be wonderful. If any of you guys are IT admins out there managing VDI deployments and you've had to diagnose connectivity problems in the past, we did not provide great tools to you. There's a lot of great third-party tools out there in market. We're working with all those guys to make sure that they can work with our new modern infrastructure. But we're going to raise the bar. That's typically what we do, right? We're a platform at the end of the day, but we're always going to raise the bar. We're always going to add more value into the native platform of RDS and allow our partners to build on top of that. So same holds true with our diagnostic role now. We're going to provide you some great root capabilities to be able to troubleshoot connectivity issues if they do arise. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is that my remote app and desktop hosts no longer are living inside of the same VNet as my infrastructure roles. They could, if I wanted to do it that way, but they can live outside of it now. And those things are now protected behind Azure Active Directory. And what this does for me is because my infrastructure roles are no longer domain joined and they don't need to live in the same VNet, this opens up the opportunity for us to support multi-tenancy. So I can build out one of these RDMI deployments, put it up in Azure, and manage a collection of remote app and desktop hosts across multiple tenants, people on different domains, 2 different customers, 2 different sets of users that are running their own infrastructure that are completely isolated from each other, all managed through a single RDMI instance. We're still working out on what our numbers, support numbers are on this, but imagine hundreds or thousands of deployments managed through a single RDMI infrastructure, okay? And one of the other things we talked about is securing that environment. So those remote app and desktop hosts that are running on that other separate VNet, no open ports required, at least not for the remote desktop components. So we now have these remote app and desktop hosts establish an outbound connection on 443 to our infrastructure. And they maintain an active connection. And then our gateway does makes the final connection between the clients and the remote app and desktop hosts on the separate network. So we talked a little bit about some of these things. New diagnostics role, we can deploy these things up into Azure. Once we deploy into Azure, we have all the rich capabilities we get with PaaS services in Azure. And in a minute, I'm going to show you a demonstration of that. But it literally takes about 2 minutes to set your elasticity parameters so that this deployment can just grow as your needs of the network grow and scale back as they decline. And you can set very small timelines for how quickly this thing can adjust. I think the default's like 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, I can adjust the size of my deployment depending on the workload. And obviously, as running as PaaS, this greatly simplifies the work that you have done, the non-glorious work of patching VMs and taking updates, right? When I'm running as PaaS, I don't have to manage that VM anymore. That's all handled for me by Azure. So let's take a little deeper look into this. So this is what a typical deployment would look like when I do it inside of Azure as PaaS. Now, to be clear, we can deploy RDS in a traditional fashion on IaaS, the way you've done it in the past. So you install these roles on server on top of a VM, right? That's the legacy way. We'll continue to support that. The modern way, modern infrastructure, is to deploy these as PaaS, and I'm no longer worrying about those VMs and all that elasticity I get as part of the infrastructure that Azure provides me. So I deploy these things into Azure PaaS, no longer managing the VMs, and then I would add my remote app and desktop host to this infrastructure. There's a process where we give a little package that you install on your application and desktop host, and then they do their reverse connect back up to the infrastructure. And I can add multiple tenants. We do a lot of internal self-hosting on this today, where one of the devs or PMs on the team will build this infrastructure, and there's a whole bunch of other teams that will go build out all their host servers or VDI instances and their session host servers, and they simply add them to that collection. And sometimes those might live on Azure. Sometimes those servers might live on-prem on their local boxes. So I want to talk a little bit about the connection flow here. We have another session on Thursday. At the end of this, we have a note about a session that Clark, he's our PM architect in the room over here. Also, there's some devs and PMs from my team that will be available here at the end of this session if there's time for questions. But go to Clark's session on Thursday, and he'll dive into this in even more detail. But generally speaking, we wanted to create a connection flow that enabled a single sign-on experience. So we've taken on some of that burden. There's a little bit of configuration you do to blend the AAD and AD together, but we've provided the capabilities to have a full single sign-on experience. So I provide my credentials, get through the AAD authentication with whatever capabilities and requirements you put in front of that user, and then I can flow all the way into the remote app and desktop hosts using those same creds. So let's talk a little bit about that flow. So let's say that my IT admin, perhaps many of you in the room enjoy that role. I set up a line of business app for me that I want to get access to. So the first thing I do, and you saw this in action in my demo, is to get access to the feed, to see the sets of apps that are made available to me, I need to provide my AAD identity. I pass that into AAD, and AAD will determine what conditions it needs to put for me to get in. So if it's single-factor authentication, then my username and password gets me that list. Once that's been established and I get the list of applications, and then I choose an application that I want to launch, then I present that token that I got through the AAD exchange to our infrastructure, and then that token's validated. So I go through that process to get the feed. That's been validated. I choose the app I want. I present that information to the infrastructure that then determines which resource should I assign the user to. So there's that constant connection I mentioned, that reverse connect logic that comes back into the infrastructure. So we know the health of the remote app and desktop hosts. We know the workload on those things. So our broker can determine what's the appropriate place to route that user to run that line of business app. So that token that I got through the ADL authentication, I present to our infrastructure that then converts that into a certificate and then allows me to get a single sign-on experience to the appropriate resource. And that could exist on-prem, in the cloud, on a completely separate network from the infrastructure. So with some configuration, some simple configuration, you can do this all through a single sign-on experience using that same identity. So now I want to switch, and I want to show you actually someone, when the sessions was getting started, asked me, are we going to talk about Azure? So let me show you some Azure. So I actually have a deployment built in my own personal Azure subscription, and I'd like to show that to you here. So let me go to my dashboard. And this is so cool. So far, we've built this entire remote desktop modern infrastructure, exposing every single capability through REST APIs. And I'm going to show you a screenshot of a very cool tool that one of our partners, People Tech Group, created, a GUI management tool that sits on top of our REST APIs. And they built this really fantastic user experience that's got a really rich UI, but under the covers, they just talk REST APIs to our infrastructure. And of course, how many of you have heard of Honolulu? That was a crammed session on Monday. Honolulu is the new server management experience, and we're one of the first few new roles that will be supported on that on day 0. So remote desktop will have a server management experience exposed through Honolulu. And again, it's Honolulu calling our native REST APIs. But we started with REST APIs, and then we built a rich PowerShell set of capabilities on top of that. So if you guys are PowerShell people and nobody cares about UX, let's all do this command line. We've got a very rich set of capabilities for you. In fact, this entire deployment was built through just a couple PowerShell commands, and we published an entire deployment up to my infrastructure. So that's what I want to turn your attention to now. So I've pinned my modern infrastructure to my dashboard here, and I'm going to drill into this resource group. Networks here are a little slow, I do apologize. And I'm just going to sort by type because I want to take you through what you see in my deployment here and what you don't see. So first off, notice there's not a single VM running in my deployment. So this is a full RDMI infrastructure deployment in Azure. So you'll note right off the bat, right at the top of the list here are my my infrastructure roles. So there's my broker, my diagnostics role, my gateway, and RD Web, all running as an Azure App Service. When we talk about PaaS, that's what we're talking about. They're running as an Azure App Service, right? So platform as a service, not infrastructure as a service. I've got my policies here and the service plans. Here's a key vault, so I'm using Azure Key Vault to store all the certificates. And then you'll see down below here is Azure SQL DB. So even the database that's maintaining the state of my deployment, what all the apps that I'm hosting, which users have access to which apps, all that information is included here in this Azure SQL DB instance. Now, the reason we can support PaaS is because every one of our roles are stateless. So I can stamp out multiple instances, I can remove instances, and the connections, everybody's connection, everything continues to work and continues to function. So that allows us that elasticity we talked about. So let me show you how we go about configuring the elasticity. We're going to make you guys look great because you're going to be able to do your job so much more efficient in the future. Because some of you have probably written some very complex scripts to handle scalability of deployments. Well, we're going to make this a lot easier. So let me take a look quickly. I'll go into Gateway here because I think I've already set up a couple policies here on elasticity. And I'm going to scroll down to my scale out policies. So what I have here is the default policies for my gateway role. And notice I put in 2 policies here, and literally this took me probably 90 seconds to program this. And it was quite simple. What I programmed in is saying if the CPU, well, first off, I set a min and max. So notice down here the instance limits min of 1, max of 5. I could put 10, I could put 20. I could put the minimum of higher than 1 as well. But I'm assuming that I've got a reasonable, set of workloads. In the morning, maybe I get this huge inrush, and by the middle of the day, things slow down, and then by the end of the day, it gets small again. So 5 seemed like a reasonable number. But I can set whatever parameters I want. So once that is set, now I say, okay, how do I want to manage? When does that 1 turn into 2, into 3, and when does it come back down? So I used a really simple model here. I said when the CPU workload of all the instances I have goes above 70%, so I'm starting to tax those apps, then create another instance, and then to start to load balance the work across the new instance. And then that average of 70 should drop down again. And let's say that it goes up to 70 again, right? So now my 2 instances go to 70 or higher, then add another one, and add another one, and add another one. And then, as the workload subsides later in the day, and let's say I got all the way up to 5 instances running of this PaaS service. Now, when the average CPU workload across that 5 instance drops below 30%, it drops 1 off. Then load balances across the other one. When it gets below 30 again, it drops 1 off, and it'll go all the way back down to 1 again. That's it. Two parameters that I set here, and now my infrastructure will grow as my needs demand and shrink as they subside. Clark's going to show a live demo of this on Thursday. They're going to set a couple policies and simulate some users logging in, and you can actually see this take place. It's very cool, very simple. I'm done. I'm a genius. Two little parameters in Azure, and now my infrastructure grows as the demand grows and shrinks as the demand subsides. So very simple to do. I wouldn't consider myself an Azure expert, but this made perfect sense to me, and it took me very little time to program these types of parameters into it. All righty, go back to here again. So I'm going to switch back. I think I'm getting near the end of my slides, and I have the exciting opportunity to bring up some other folks in the room. But I think I've got one more slide here before I transition off. And I've got to run. I apologize. I'm going to grab my laptop and go as soon as I'm done speaking. I'm going to be doing another live recording of the mechanics video that we posted on YouTube I mentioned earlier, down in the theater in the West Wing here. So if you guys are interested, when this session's over, if you rush down to the theater, you can partake in that. The cool thing, you're going to see some more of this RDMI in action, but also someone's going to win a free Surface laptop. So very cool opportunity there. So race back down and you can catch me there. I mentioned earlier that we worked with one of our partners, the People Tech Group, and I think someone from the People Tech Group is here. Someone from People Tech Group in the room? Oh, there he is right over there. So Prasad, right? Yeah, Prasad came into our offices, showed us some demonstrations, some very cool UX they built for RDS, and we challenged him. We said, tell you what if we give you access to RDMI? We don't have any documentation or anything yet, but we'll give you access to this RDMI, but we've got some really cool PowerShell, and there's some REST APIs that sits underneath those PowerShell. And he said, fine, yeah, we can do that. 3 days later, he came back with this. a working user experience for RDMI. They used PowerShell, used Wireshark, figured out the REST APIs, documented all the REST APIs, and built a UX on top of RDMI. This is a great example of remote desktop as a platform, a great example of a partner building value on top of our platform capabilities. So very cool implementation, and this is very similar, if not identical, to what you're going to see with Honolulu, because we're taking the same UX and we're going to build this on top of Honolulu as well. So if you're managing other things and other server roles, doing it all inside of a single portal will bring you a lot of value. But if you want to use just a standard app service, so again, this can be deployed as an Azure PaaS service. So your UX management can live in Azure as a single PaaS service as well. You have that opportunity. So without further ado, I'm very excited to welcome Sridhar Mullapudi to the stage. I'm also going to have David Belanger come up, who's going to be doing some of the demos, showing you some of the new innovations we've done in the remote desktop clients.
Thank you, Scott. You guys can hear me okay? Good. Really excited to be here. We've been obviously a great partner with Microsoft, working on a lot of innovation. I want to talk, how Citrix Cloud is using all the benefits of Azure Platform Services, including Azure AD, Office 365 integration. But before I get into future and some of the future innovation we've been jointly working together, I want to do a quick recap. I don't know how many of you have been following this, but it's been a pretty busy 4 quarters for Citrix and Microsoft working together, right? Now, the first thing we did, obviously, was support Windows Server 2016, day 0 support, or we probably should be calling day 1, with 7.11. And right now, if you look at the XenApp version, it's 7.15. The second one was Skype for Business, right? It's a joint collaboration with Microsoft. We started probably about 3 years, and if I look at the active usage of daily active users today, which are virtualizing Skype for Business using Citrix and Microsoft, we have about 300,000 users, right? So these are daily active users, not installed users. And we're also very excited with some of the recent announcements Microsoft made around Microsoft Teams. And we are working very closely with Office 365 as well as Microsoft Teams in supporting Teams and the full collaboration suite in a virtualized deployment, whether it's a XenApp or a VDI type deployment. I think last year at Ignite, we talked about XenApp Essentials and our joint partnership. It's been about 6 months since we launched XenApp and XenDesktop Essentials. Again, a lot of great success. We have, hundreds of active customers using the service today with tens of thousands of user sessions, right? Again, a great partnership that we built over the past 4 quarters. And last but not the least, work we've done along with NetScaler and Enterprise Mobility Suite, as well as Intune integrations. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, right, we built Citrix Cloud. I think it was announced probably a little over 2 years back. And all of our services, whether it's XenApp, XenDesktop, or other Citrix services, are available on Citrix Cloud. And Citrix Cloud is built on Azure, right? The entire cloud platform is built on Azure. We leverage a lot of Azure PaaS capabilities. Plus, we've done integration with Azure AD, Office 365, and I'll show some recent examples and some future innovation on that. But I want to talk a little bit on, in this new world of Azure and Azure AD and Office 365, what are some of the value that Citrix brings on top of this new platform, right? We've been working very closely on Microsoft, and I would say it kind of falls under these 6 buckets. One, choice of cloud, right? We understand customers are running on private cloud, which is hypervisors and other on-prem deployments today, as well as looking at public cloud like Azure. And Citrix Cloud supports that hybrid deployment. So whether your resource location is running on-prem, which probably is a lot of workloads today, or Azure, by the way, we are seeing a huge growth of Azure through Citrix Cloud. In fact, I would say right now about 60% of a lot of the workload deployments through Citrix Cloud are going to Azure, right? So that number used to be about 10, 20%, and now it's dramatically going towards Azure as the public cloud of our choice. OS flexibility. Now, we obviously support Server 2016 and Win 10, but we also support either previous versions of Windows operating systems, or if you have Linux applications and desktops, we support that as a single platform. The third one is Citrix Cloud, and especially XenApp and XenDesktop services that come on it. It's a turnkey service, right? So all the infrastructure is completely managed by Citrix. And what the customer or the partner is actually doing is managing the workload, the actual resource location, whether it's the application or the VDI desktop or the actual image itself, and any backend infrastructure that the application needs. The whole infrastructure is completely managed by Citrix as part of the Citrix Cloud offering. And then there's multiple offerings. You can choose whether it's Essentials, which is tailored more for an SMB type audience, or you have the complete XenApp, XenDesktop, or the Workspace service for more enterprise deployments and flexibility. We've done a lot of enhanced security, not just leveraging Azure AD, but also some of the integrations we've done with NetScaler, especially when you have application and application traffic and legacy applications going through your data center. The next piece is advanced analytics. And when I talk about advanced analytics, not just the performance-based analytics, things like HDX Insight and others, but also analytics we are launching, working in close collaboration with Microsoft. And I'll talk a little bit, and I have a slide on that, on some of the new innovation that we are doing around analytics. The last one is, earlier this year, we made an acquisition of a company called Unidesk, right? And that's about layering applications and how you can simplify image management in your RDS and RDMI deployments. And one of the things we've done is we made it really simple for you to take an exact same image, whether it's a server OS or a Win10 OS or an application image, and make it portable to Azure, right? Because one of the challenges you have is how do I use the same image without actually recreating the image in a different template and patching my on-prem, patching what I have in Azure, but be able to create a portable layer, essentially abstract all the drivers, whether it's a hypervisor drivers or the Azure-related drivers into a different layer, but take the same application and image layer, make it portable between on-prem as well as Azure. And pretty soon you'll see that we're going to launch a replication service as well that makes this image management really simple across on-prem and cloud deployments. So in hybrid cloud and multi-cloud strategy, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud you're building on Azure. I want to talk a little bit about 3 new service or service experience we've built on Citrix Cloud, which kind of enable what we call the workspace of the future, right? One is the workspace experience, analytics, and unified control. So unified control is really about simplifying the application management, onboarding experience for all these different applications. Today, I want to talk about a little bit of workspace experience and analytics. The first one, and those of you who probably have been using Citrix Cloud might realize we launched a new service called the Workspace service within Citrix Cloud. So this is a unified access for all your applications, right? Whether you have applications that you virtualize using XenApp, XenDesktop running on top of RDS, or you have applications now delivered on top of Azure, you can have one place where users can access all your application, right? And doesn't matter whether it's legacy applications running or virtualized application. And we've done integration with NetScaler and Unified Gateway. So if you have enterprise web apps and apps built using SharePoint, it all can be consolidated through single sign-on experience. And as I said, Citrix Cloud integrates with Azure AD, both for the admin side of things as well as the user side of things as the authentication platform. There are other aspects to it which we bring, especially for things like we are doing around healthcare and financial customers, to provide some context. So when users are roaming between different devices and launching native receivers or through a web page, we can actually understand what their environment is and provide some options. You'll see this new capability we've been talking about called the smart spaces. So when the doctor is actually roaming between different locations, we can automatically change the experience of that application. Plus integration we've done with ShareFile as well as connectors we've built around OneDrive. The second service, which we've announced as well a few months back and working very closely, is called the analytics service. Now, traditionally, we've focused most of our Citrix-based analytics on performance, right? Insights, as well as to really troubleshoot issues that users might be having as part of their application. Another aspect that we are building is security-based analytics. Now, a lot of this you see today is geared towards coming in through NetScaler and on-prem Active Directory, and so we can analyze all the traffic that's going north and south, whether it's through virtualized applications or through other web traffic, and can even highlight, who, for example, in this case, we are actually showing you risk indicators, right? Who are your top risky users, either in terms of the device location or where it's coming. The second big thing, which is the most exciting thing we're working with Microsoft, is integration with Security Graph, right? As customers are not using AD, but using Azure AD as the authentication platform, we can take all the information that the Security Graph provides through Azure AD and augment either applications coming from the cloud, or use the same Azure AD and Security Graph information to put conditional access or block certain things for their on-prem applications as well. And that's a pretty powerful story, because now you get the power of the Security Graph and Azure AD for not just applications that are running in the cloud, but also for your existing on-prem applications, whether it's virtualized or enterprise web apps. And that's a great piece of innovation work we're jointly working with Microsoft. And the last one, I think a lot of you realize is the depth that Citrix provides in terms of the device support or even the user experience. Now, traditionally, you've seen a lot of times we have rich clients, whether it's Windows, Mac, a lot of the Linux 10 clients. Some of the recent ones we've done are things like Samsung DeX. But what I'm really excited about is Windows 10s, right? So we've been working closely with Microsoft on launch of their new Windows 10s devices, and essentially taking our Windows receiver and launching it as a native universal app as part of their platform. Now today, there is a universal app that's already available on Windows Store, but it has limited functionality just because of some of the restrictions of universal platform. But as I said, we've been working closely with Microsoft using the Centennial approach to take our Windows receiver, what we call Win32 receiver, the full capable receiver, and fully supporting it as a native UWP app for Windows 10s devices, right? So when you are going out there looking at the new Windows 10s devices and using native capabilities, whether it's native UWP apps or other applications, you can use your virtualized application and other applications as well on the new Windows 10s device with all the rich capabilities that a traditional Win32 receiver brings, right? So today it's available in the store as a tech preview, and pretty soon we'll be launching it as a fully supported release as well, with all the capabilities in line with the Microsoft release of Windows 10s devices. So that kind of sums up some of the innovation we've done over the past 4 quarters, and probably be very busy working with Microsoft, whether it's integration with Azure, Azure PaaS services, Azure AD, things we've talked about, Security Graph, and new device supports like Win10s, and simplifying management and application delivery for that. And with that, I'll pass it to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar. All right, time for a couple more demos. So first, I'm David Bélanger. I'm one of the program manager on the remote desktop team, as Scott mentioned. And part of my job day to day is actually working on some of our clients. So I own a lot of the Windows clients and also our new web client. And also have a coworker that owns a lot of our non-Windows clients for iOS, Mac, and Android. So first, we had so many devices already, so decided to skip the live Mac demo. So my coworker Ava, who's still back in Redmond, recorded a video for me, so I could play that, and I quickly walk you guys through some of the new Mac experience. So how many people actually use the Mac client today for remote desktop? So a few of you. And of you guys, how many know that there's even a beta available on Hockey app? Okay, so just a couple of you guys. So we've been working on a brand new version of the Mac client that is currently in the Hockey app, available as a beta. I definitely recommend for anyone that has a Mac and works on a Mac on a daily basis to use the beta client. It has a lot of great new functionality, and that's what we'll be kind of covering and giving you a preview today. And we'll be releasing the beta version probably in the next month. And it will be replacing the existing Mac remote desktop client. So definitely recommend you guys start playing with it if you have customers that are interested in a Mac client. So quickly as the video goes through, so on the left side is the current Mac experience that's been around for a little while. And on the right side is the new Mac client that we've been working on. And then part of the interesting thing of the Mac client is it's the first client is actually leveraging our new core SDK from Remote Desktop. So we're working on a standard engine that we'll be using for all of our clients in the future, and the Mac client just happens to be the first one we'll be releasing with that. We're also planning on making that SDK eventually available for people to build their own clients, again with the theme of Remote Desktop becoming a platform that our partners can build upon. We're hoping to start probably with a Windows SDK, and over time, based on demand, add the SDK to work on other platforms. So on the right side, similar to a lot of our kind of newer clients, you get the new experience with kind of the tiles and everything else. And also the ability for admins to manage their desktops a little bit better by creating different groups and being able to assign the desktops in those groups for better management when you have hundreds of different desktops and stuff. And she's basically kind of moving the desktops around between the groups, contrary to on the old application where everything was always kind of just in a flat list that you could always see kind of top to bottom. We've also brought in kind of the thumbnails to get a quick idea of which desktops are which, and we'll have the ability to also turn that off based on privacy, depending on what you're connecting to. We are keeping, however, the list view, since some customers also prefer the list view when you do have a lot of desktops or applications to give you the ability to have a lot more kind of a different connection visible at the same time. The client will support connecting to remote resources, so be that desktops or applications that are published by the administrator. Similar to what we do today on Windows and other platforms, you'll be putting in either an email address or URL, signing in. It will support AAD based when we start supporting the new RDMI infrastructure, and you'll be able to download a feed and basically get access to your applications and desktops. Also support for folders if the administrator has set up different applications in a different set of folders. Whereas on the old application, it was really just a flat list, kind of top to bottom, that you had to scroll up and down. We're also working on putting the final touches and supporting basically Rails, similar to what we have on Windows, where even on the Mac, each remote app applications will show up as its own individual window, kind of floating with your other Mac applications. Due to a limitation of kind of the Mac platform and the way it works with those separate windows, they don't actually show up in the kind of the taskbar for Windows or the bar at the bottom. So we're adding functionality at the top for the remote desktop to be also able to switch between applications while those applications are running. And so she's just quickly going through a quick demonstration of some of the kind of moving around with PowerPoint. And so as we get there. And so I definitely recommend you guys kind of check that out on the Hockey app right now and soon available through the store. And just in the spirit of time, I'm assuming, yeah, it's almost there. So, and then basically, yeah, at the top here, you can select kind of which application and stuff you want to connect to. So switching gears, let's move over now to Windows and some of the improvements that we've been making on our Windows 10 universal application for remote desktop. So today, the client does support, and it's available through the store. And it does support both connecting to your own personal desktops and also kind of connecting to feeds. Although a lot of the feedback we've been getting lately, specifically for that client, has been coming a little bit more from the admin side and people kind of wanting an alternative for MSTSC to just manage some of their computers and servers that they have around. So some of the new functionality we've been introducing in the client are really tailored more to that aspect of the client. And I'll kind of give you a quick demo of some of those features. So first one, just connecting to a desktop, and hopefully all my connections are still live and the VPN is up and running. So I'm connecting to a desktop basically back on our Redmond campus. And here as an administrator, basically connect to my first PC, and I'm able to interact with it standard remote desktop. And I now have the ability to go back to the home page. And we now have an indicator to see kind of which connections are currently active and alive. So you can see it from quickly, kind of which desktops you've got connected. And we added the ability for multiple simultaneous connection, which we didn't have originally in the client, and it was clearly a highly requested feature. So once we have that, then similar to our other clients, you have the ability to switch between your desktops and disconnect from them as needed. So switching to desktop 1, And then, so if I disconnect that one and go back to the home page, you can see now PC2 is the one that's active, and I also have the ability to disconnect directly from the connection center. So another feature that we're currently in process of releasing that's been really highly requested is the ability to now not only be able to multitask between those two desktops, but not needing to always switch between them from within the application. A lot of tech people and IT folks have often multiple monitors, so they wanted the ability to have different desktops and different windows and be able to kind of move those around. So we've been working on adding that functionality. So now, once this releases, we'll be adding a new option here in the settings. I turned off the full screen option, but you can also enable full screen and always kind of launch the session in full screen. But we're adding the option to launch each connection as a new window. So now if I connect again to PC1, it actually launches as its own separate window that they can move around. I can close the connection center and not even have the connection center open. And you just have kind of the separate session that's going around. However, it still has a connection back to the connection center. You can still see which connections are active or basically launched back into the desktop set from there. We also added the ability to launch RDP files. So I created a desktop shortcut with an RDP file to connect to a different desktop. And as I was typing, basically I typed in a username of a user that I've already saved into the application, since it does user management and gateway management. It automatically recognizes it's a user that's already been added and pre-populated the password for me, so I can save time from that. So again, I've got a different session here that's connected to a different server. In this case, it's actually server 2016. And so I was able to launch it from an RDP file and get the separate window. Then if I disconnect those, a couple of the last things that we've been adding lately. So if I go to one of the desktops, one thing that was not the help connecting. So if I look in the advanced options, there's some of the features that was always often requested, even more as there is more and more high DPI devices out there. For example, like a lot of those kind of Surface Book, Surface Laptop, more and more high DPI devices. When you're connecting to PCs running, for example, Windows 7, Windows Server 2012, and things like that, sometimes you run into issues where everything is so small because we generally will sync the full resolution. However, there is no kind of DPI concept really on Windows 7, so that's been causing some issues. So one ability that we added is by default, we kind of choose for you and just map the kind of the local resolution. However, if you're connecting to PCs, for example, running Windows 7, you now have the ability to actually choose kind of which resolution you want to connect to. And once I do that, I can also choose which DPI I want to use. So if you're connecting to, obviously, Windows 7, DPI doesn't really matter. So what you're going to want to do is actually connect with a lower resolution, but then choose a different way to scale, basically, your display. So here, and then if you're connecting to Windows, kind of, let's say, 8 or 10, normally you can choose whatever resolution you want, and then at that point, the display scaling actually comes into play. And sometimes, like a trick, sometimes if you don't want to have some of the blurriness, if locally on that desktop you're normally at a, let's say, 125% ratio, sometimes setting the client to 125 will preserve the same aspect ratio, so you'll sometimes get a kind of a crisper picture instead of having the system trying to automatically scale, since scaling normally requires a log off and log back and log on. And just quickly to show that comes into play also with this other setting that we have here, which is when resizing the application. So we've got 3 different options. So the show the scroll bars is basically the default mode in MSTSC if you're used to that, right? So as you resize the screen, you just see the scroll bars. So if you do stretch the content, that's the smart sizing from MSTSC. However, we received a lot of feedback on that often, as soon as you start moving it, it's easier to lose the aspect ratio and things just kind of get a little bit tweaked. So from that, we added a new mode, which is actually the default that we use, which is stretch the content but preserving the aspect ratio. So at that point, it will properly scale and just letterbox basically the aspect ratio that's missing. So you'll typically see black bars either on the top and bottom or on the side, but it will preserve kind of the right aspect ratio as you make things bigger. So to go back to my Windows 7 story, so if you use a smaller resolution, but you use stretch the content, either preserving aspect ratio or stretch the content, that's how you'll be able to get a readable connection to Windows 7 from a high DPI device. So going back to my connection settings, if I go back again in the advanced option, the last part I wanted to show was just really the ability to create different groups. So similar to the Mac client, as you admins start adding a lot of different connections and they've got different labs or different rooms or different kind of buildings, sometimes you want to be able to group your different connections. So in this case, if I create a group 1, here, so I've created the group 1, the group's already created, and then when I save this, the Windows PC 1 will actually move into group 1. And then, so you're able to create different groups, move your different desktops between them, and we added the ability, obviously, to just do a quick drag and drop between the different groups to easily kind of manage the different connections that you have. So those are some of the new features. Most of them available already in the store. The only one missing that I showed is really the multi-window aspect of it. So switching to my third and final demo, let's talk a little bit about our new web client that we've been working on. So how many people here have an interest in a web client or have customers that are interested in a web client? Glad to see that. Lots of hands raised. So I'll be showing a quick demo here. So the new web client, we're actually planning on supporting that both as part of our new RDMI infrastructure that Scott kind of walked you through, but also we'll be making that available on top of Windows Server 2016 for any kind of for any customers out there. And that will be basically on 2016, because the OS is already released. There will be some PowerShell script in the PowerShell gallery. You'll be able to access those scripts, and through those scripts, basically access the different versions available online, download a version, kind of test it out, and then publish it to your users. And we're also making it, giving you the ability on 2016 to download then a separate version, put it in a kind of a test URL, so you can test it out, make sure everything works, and then you swap it for your live version. So once it's deployed, the first part is it gets integrated into the RD Web. So you'll actually run those scripts on your RD Web server, and it will basically live side by side with the current existing RD Web. And on 2016, we actually leverage the same logon page as the RD Web client, or page that already existed. On RDMI, obviously the logon page will just be standard AAD, and then once you get past that, the rest of the experience will basically be the same. So let's see, assuming everything is still up and going. By the way, for those of us that do remote desktop demos, it's always quite fun, and that's why I've got backup videos for everything. So it's always quite the process to make sure everything is lined up. So once I've signed in, I'm now connected to kind of similar to the RD Web, right? So behind the scene, I went and subscribed to the feed that's associated with my user. And then I pulled the app feed, app and desktop. So in this case, I do have a full desktop published to me. However, the UI is now kind of more, it's a refreshed UI that looks a little bit nicer. And then we're also able to kind of, it looks a little bit more like our other clients where we've got the different tiles and you're able to access your resources from here. So the first part is, let's say I wanted to work in Power BI. So I'm actually now initiating a connection to my endpoint that is running in an IaaS deployment of Server 2016 in Azure. So as the connection goes through, it's signing in my user to that server, and my Power BI for desktop is actually launching. And so I can start being productive and working on my Power BI. We'll just give that guy a second to finish loading. All right, so I've got my Power BI. I can start kind of doing some of my work. And then I need to kind of capture some notes as I'm walking through my Power BI. I can always, at any time, switch back to the All Resource tab and launch, for example, Notepad++ for me to be able to take some notes. And in this case, so I can start grabbing a couple notes and be able to kind of switch between my two applications easily and go back and forth, launching additional applications. If I open up additional instances, you'll see kind of the number of apps that are actually running. You'll be able to easily switch between them. And then also, so going back, let's show kind of what it looks like connecting to a full desktop. So in this case, I'm connecting to a different endpoint and providing my credentials and then signing into the full desktop that's been provided to me. And then once I'm connected, I'll get a full desktop experience instead of the apps. But it does still live side by side in the client. So in this case, just for the sake of time, I've already pre-launched, for example, Power BI and my Notepad++, assuming I was still doing the same type of work on the desktop. And once I'm here, I'm able to easily switch between my apps, my app feed, and my full desktop. If I want a more immersive experience, we added the ability to go in full screen. Obviously, sometimes some browsers prompt you to make sure you were willing to go into full screen. So by default, what we do is we leave the bar at the top so that even in full screen, you still have an easy ability to view all your connections and your applications and easily switch between them while you remain in full screen. It just makes it easier. However, if you decide that you wanted even more screen real estate, you could also go in kind of even more in full screen by hiding the top bar. And at that point, we'll just leave a little knob at the top so you can easily kind of come back in and out and switch between your apps and desktops. And that covers kind of the initial feature set. So we'll be releasing this as part of the RDMI, and we're still working kind of the timing, sometimes early next year for the web client on Server 2016, which will be a separate release. There will be most likely a public preview coming up. Keep an eye on our RDS blog. Typically, that's where we'll announce any kind of new changes or kind of beta releases, tap programs that you can join. And then I will be... Let's get to the question in just a sec, since this will have the microphone. We're basically just about done with the presentation. Okay. So just a kind of a quick recap. We've got I think that's going, yeah. So we've talked about kind of the Windows 10s. We showed the kind of user experience. The new web client that's coming up, and we've been working a lot on our Mac client. We keep working on all of our clients, right? Whether that's the Mac, iOS, Android. We're working hard on making sure that all of them will be able to connect to this new RDMI infrastructure that we've been working on. And if you want to learn more about RDMI, so Scott already went into some details, but Clark and Pavitra and others from the team will go into even more detail at the session on Thursday. Highly recommend you stop by and take a look at what they'll be covering in there. And also, if you're not already part of it, definitely recommend you join the Insider for Business group. That is where a lot of our kind of the betas and the initial program or preview program will be made available for our DMI bits as soon as they're available for broader self-hosting. And as Scott mentioned, obviously we covered a lot of the aspects of what we've been working on in the last year, kind of around the security kind of movement into the cloud and really supporting and optimizing for platforms like Azure, and then all the work that we've been doing on the clients. And with that, same as any other sessions, please make sure you evaluate our session. We always love your feedback and kind of know how we can do better next year at Ignite. And with that, we'll be turning it over to Q&A. And please, if you have questions, try to make it to one of the mics so that it gets actually recorded from one of the sessions. And I'll invite some of my coworkers to come and join me on stage. We're also available at the Microsoft booth in the security section. Look for us on the remote desktop services. If you have questions, that's always easier to have kind of one-on-one conversation. So we'll be there for the next 3 days. With that, thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
What about single sign-on in the web client? I noticed that you had to click on the save credentials. That doesn't look very modern.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're working on. So I was showing the Windows Server 2016 version, which that one, with the current limitation, we likely won't get, but it's always something we strive for. I think like Scott was mentioning with the new RDMI environment, with the fact that we can leverage kind of the certificate and AAD, our goal is to be able to provide a single sign-on.
Yeah, and the second question was that I like the web client, looks good now. The old one looks a little bit old. But I want to launch the remote desktop client. Many users don't like to be inside a web browser. They want to, so like Citrix app, you have the storefront. So again, nice web UI, the user goes in there to SSO, and then I want to kick off the local client to have the local experience.
So you mean kind of go through the web and then drop to one of our native clients?
Yeah, that's Citrix has done for
Basically.
many years. Yeah.
That's something we plan on supporting. I don't know if it'll be there in the first version, but we've already started getting a lot of the feedback around that. So being able to sign into the web experience, since a lot of people like that consistent experience no matter what platform you're on, and from there being able to jump to one of our native clients. So since we had that functionality in the existing RD web, right, where you could go to your list and jump, yeah, we're definitely going to have to enable that. So we'll see about potentially having the option to kind of right-click on one of the applications and then launch in the native experience, or maybe in the client being able to choose what your default is, so that, for example, that may be even configurable by the admin, so you could configure it where the default would be launching directly in the native client.
If you look at the competition you don't work with today, they have that very nicely integrated. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We use the multi-factor authentication on-premise server for any for the applications. When you launch the applications, it will be provided with multi-factor authentication. How does that change with the new version?
You know that, Clark? Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Okay, we have multi-factor authentication on the RDS through the gateway.
That's what you have today?
You have that today set up. Okay.
How does this going to change with the web client or the newer version?
Well, with RDMI, well, let me back up. That was probably relatively difficult to set up from what I've heard from most of our partners. It's not an easy thing to set up. And this is one of the beautiful things about integrating with Azure AD is you basically get that sort of for free now. So once the clients are authenticating against Azure AD, those are just some settings in your portal, your Azure portal now for AD. You can turn on multi-factor auth, you set up the phone numbers and so on and so forth right there in the portal for whatever users you want to do that for, and off you go. So it's going to be significantly easier to set up, I guess, is the bottom line.
Okay.
And then to add to that, right? So in 2016, one of the things we're working on is we're working with the Azure App Proxy team to also see if we can make sure that the web client for 2016 will be able to leverage App Proxy. So you could technically put the App Proxy basically in front of your deployment and get the kind of AD authentication and all that, or to multi-factor auth before you get into the network, and basically be able to enable multi-factor auth through App Proxy for 2016.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, just to piggyback off that, you guys are thinking about the web application proxy as well for 2016, like accounting for that and using that for multi-factor and single sign-on, and still making sure that your clients work through that as well. It just made me think about it. So
yeah, that's definitely something. So I know we've been running into some issues lately. We've definitely had some customers calling us about that. So we've been working really closely with the App Proxy team to make sure we kind of streamline the process, whether it's from our current kind of MSCSE Windows client, our Mac client, and all that.
Yeah, I work for the government, so they're kind of like, we like to keep everything on-prem. Boo, Azure, right? So the web app proxy, this part of Windows Server is kind of like where they look for reverse proxy and stuff like that, and multi-factor. Yep. But first, that's second now, right? I don't know if you remember RDC Man from back in the day. I kind of like the new, the Windows Store app that you guys just showed. It's very kind of similar to the old RDC Man thing. Where
correct. It's definitely where we're taking some inspiration, right? Yeah. So I don't know if you know the story of RDC Man, but yeah.
You mentioned that some people like to have the multi-monitor, view and stuff, and sometimes you might want to start in the tab between the windows, but then you're like, oh, I need to really break this one out. I didn't see on there if there was an easy way to start off in the tab view and then just break one out into another screen, like perhaps just hit a button and then just breaks out into its own window. I didn't see that. I wasn't sure if that's there.
So that's something we decided for implementation speediness, I guess, to not put in the V1. However, we do plan on adding an option to do that. We're not sure yet if we'll do the drag and drop. We'll have to see kind of how easy that is, but if not, potentially on the right side panel, we'll just add a button to say kind of undock and be able to switch between the states. We don't know if we'll be able to redock, but at least do the pop out is our goal.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
Question over
Yep.
here. Being a hosting provider, I'm very excited for the RDMI part. Can you elaborate a little bit on the GA of this? I think you went very briefly over that part.
Okay. Yeah, the question was, he's very excited about RDMI and is wondering about the GA, general availability of the first version of that. So yeah, and we will go through a little bit more detail on the roadmap at the session that Scott mentioned on Thursday morning. But the GA is planned for this coming spring. Okay, so we're trying to get the RDMI lined up with the Redstone release cadence every 6 months. We'll have a new version with new features in the spring and the fall. That's our plan. So the first one will start this coming spring.
Thank you.
Just one question and one more regarding the protocol stack. We're seeing that with high latency networks, there could be, you could do some more work on that. Are you planning to do that, or is the RDP protocol stack as it is today?
Yeah, I mean, that one, we're never done, right? Protocol always keeps evolving and stuff. So we have a team that's dedicated to kind of protocol and the graphics, different graphics parts. Kind of the more recent investments there, we're obviously moving to H.264 and things like that. If you want to stop by the booth, we can always talk about kind of the specific issue, but the short version is we're always investing on the stack. So when we hear of kind of issues or scenarios that are not working as seamlessly as they should be, we'd love to hear more about it, kind of learn more about the details of it and see kind of how we can improve that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I do highly recommend RDP 10. I don't know if you're running the latest version. That would be 2016 from Win 10, yeah, because the world is moving to the cloud and we're helping to drive that with the features we're adding here. Obviously, latency is going to become a thing that we're constantly trying to improve is how to handle high latency networks and low bandwidth connections. Yeah.
And we're also working closely with the graphics team in Windows to see kind of what we can leverage from them and working together to make improvements.
Will the RDMI be supported on Azure Stack looking ahead a bit?
It will be. Yeah, the question was, will it be supported, RDMI, will it be supported on Azure Stack? That is our plan. In fact, we're testing it now on both Azure and Azure Stack kind of in parallel. Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone, and come and see us at the booth if you haven't already. We've got some of the posters also that shows the entire infrastructure and the different roles. You can always come and grab one of the physical posters, although they're yay big, but we'll also have links to the actual kind of PDF download and all that. So please come by and have a chat.